We expect human judgment to be rational. And we expect that because we make a distinction between us and animals, and we say that human beings can judge, human beings can rationalize things. How true is that? Number one, right? If human beings were rational beings, life would be very simple. Considering human beings to be rational beings, are we denying that we are mostly animals? Are we denying that we have amygdala, which is crazy? Are we denying that we have this, limbic system that evolved in the modern age? Are we going to say that we are rational beings? Are we going to say that the highest order thinking associated with prefrontal cortex develops fully when we are 27? And before you're 27, your prefrontal cortex is going to suffer the repercussions of you having an immature prefrontal cortex. So you're not going to be rational. You're not a rational being. We look at so many natures around human beings, and we just see that the things we call rational are just instinctual whatevers, right? They are very, you don't know why you did that, or you don't know why you think this. Yeah, you can say that in words, for example, right? You can say, well, I say that this thing is pink because it appears to be pink, so that's logical. But that appears to be pink and it is pink are two different things, right? They're two different things, and we believe in a thing to be what it is, what it appears to be, because we work through truth. Believing something is pink, for example, is going to help us in our aesthetic pursuits, for example, or it's going to help us maybe in some reflex trying to understand whatever the word pink, color pink, is associated with, evolutionarily speaking. That means it's truth, right? There is a saying that truth serves life, and this means that anything you consider truth influences your life in such a way that it serves your life. So then the question comes about, like, what is your life, right? What is truth serving? Because you are not one personality, right? You are a multiple combination of very weird personalities. So when truth comes and you are considering something to be true, what part is considering that to be truth? What we expect from human beings is that their rational part, the prefrontal, should consider things to be true. But that's not right, is it? That's not correct. Let me give you an example, right, to show that human beings are not rational beings instinctively. Very common example, it's night, you go somewhere and you hit a rope. The first instinct you have is that that's a snake, and you're going to freak out. You're going to behave as if it was a snake, right? That's going to be your truth. But then after your eyes see that, you calm down a little bit, then you're not going to think it is a snake. So that's what prefrontal cortex does, right? It needs time to assess things. But you can't afford time to access things all the time, right? When there is a question of life and death, you're not going to consider rationality then. That is why we see wars happen. That's why we see instinctual fights happen. That's why we see instinctual behavior of human beings, right? We are not rational beings by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think we are. Fundamentally, we are instinctual beings, and rationality is also a form of instinct we have because it runs from a value system, right? One thing is more rational than the other. Who says that? Why? It just is, right? Yeah, it just is instinct, right? It's based on a type of dogma. It's just based on a belief ki bas hai. And fundamentally, everything is based on that. Everything is based on that. There are so many illusions that we see as truth. And sometimes I also think that there is no difference between illusions and truth. It is just that illusions are those statements that are not considered truth anymore, or statements that are considered truth by others but not by us. Those are illusions. Okay? For example, an inexperienced person comes out and they have opinions about a particular healthcare environment. Are those illusions inaccurate? Yeah, I mean, more possible they are inaccurate than they are accurate. But it is their truth. They believe in that truth. They live life as if that thing is that. And so there comes a power in human beings where we can choose those truths. And the way we choose those truths is by trying to find out, like, at first what is the nature of that truth. Okay, so like before we indulge and believe things, we should at first pay attention to the nature of why we consider that thing to be true and what purpose will that serve, right? Because if truth is supposed to serve life, and whose life is it serving, angel or demons, we gotta be a little choosy there. We gotta, have our concepts clear about truth. And so truth serves life. And imagine that even in procedural way, right? If you have lived your life a particular way, there's a particular mechanism you fit in so that you can live in the world, and you follow that rhythm. You follow that rhythm everywhere. It's not even in your thoughts, it's in your actions, right? Like when you drive a bike, for example, right? It's the truth that if I press this one, it's clutch, press the other one, it's the brake. It's a truth that you live by, and it gets you somewhere, right? Like there is a utility aspect to truth. But when but what when there is a thing which we consider to be true just because others consider it to be true, then things become shaky, because then you can't go 100% into that thing. You just can't, because it's not yours. You do not understand it completely, or you don't believe in it completely because it is not your truth. And so when it comes to talk of these illusions, I think it is very important to get rid of these illusions. It's very important. I think it's very important to set up some protocols when it comes to looking at truth in that fashion. Because here's the thing, fundamentally, human beings, they want to survive, at least live, just so that they can then later experience their own strength by thriving. But initial step is for sure is surviving. And why is that surviving? The initial step is always surviving, because when we are born, we are weak and vulnerable. We don't come to the world very strong. We come to the world very weak and dependent on other people. And it completely depends how we're going to shape based on the treatment you get as a child. Forms tons of your personalities, forms a lot of reflex action. It's like a bombardment. It's like a bombardment of truths that happen to people. It's a clear bombardment. And when those truths are there, you imagine it like a filter. On one side is a child's psyche, on the other side it's somebody else's, or if it is your nurture. And everything comes in through that filter. And it's not just that things are going across that filter, but that filter is also changing as time goes by. And then that filter is used to see the world when the child grows up. And then that filter is what the child is trying to uh, adjust, or sometimes adjust to that filter. That filter is known as perception. And if that filter is not only created by, if that filter is not only created um, by families, या फिर by cultures, it is created by years of social evolution. So when that happens, it's going to be problematic, because you have a physical being who is vulnerable and weak, and then you have billions of years of cultural, you can say, powers that are trying to accommodate to that filter. Why? Because everything wants to, again, survive, right? Even those cultural entities want to survive, cultural taboos want to survive. So they try to adjust everybody's filter just so that reality can be shifted in that fashion. And it is very useful. It's very useful, and mostly it's useful. But there is also this thing that if truths, if some truths are realized to be not serving life of the things that we want, whose lives we want to survive, we want to have survived, then it becomes problematic. And then we need to speak up on that. We need to speak up on how, like, many things that seem to be true are just illusions that should not be believed in. And then a good case should be made to understand that, hey, this is just bullshit. This is not going to get you far, for example. This is, believing in this is not going to give you a good life, for example, right? Because our truths run our lives. And when these truths are not our own, somebody else is going to run our lives. And we are not going to die with them. We are not going to die with ourselves. You're just gonna die, but you're gonna live with yourself a lot. And so you should at least have your own truth, right? That's what's the aim of this video, to be honest. Because I came here, I had a thing in my head to talk about, but then I opened the camera and I just could not talk. So I was like, I gotta go all in, try to figure out what can I, bring out today. Because I'm also trying to learn how to speak. I'm trying to learn. But here's the thing, when we look at truth and we look at illusions, here is one illusion that I think needs to be broken. The illusion is quality is better than quantity. I think that's a half truth. That's not the full truth. The full truth is quality is inherent in quantity. The more quantity you put out, the more chances are there for you to figure out a quality between those things. Here's why. But here's why I believe that. At first, you look at history, right? You look at all the great artists. You look at Beethoven, for example, considered on quality to be 100 out of 100. His music is going to survive for a very long time. It's going to live for a very long time. You look at the quantity he produced. I think it's believed that he produced like 10,000 to 15,000 work of art, out of which what, like 1% is considered to be greatest. Not even 1%, to be honest. Like top 1% of his things are considered to be great. And so it's just not going to fly well, right? If you're not producing a lot, you're not going to figure out a quantity. Really, you are not going to figure out a quantity. Let's look at somebody from the modern world, right? Let's look at Eminem, for example. His approach to making an album is just to keep making music, whatever comes out, and then try to figure out if an album can be made out of certain songs, if there is a common theme or whatever, right? What is he doing? Same thing. These people have figured out that quality doesn't just come out. Quality is in editing. Quality is not in just producing. Quality is not in you sit down and you just write 4 pages and that's it. That's the quality that you can produce. No. Quality is like how much can you go back? How many repetitions can you do? And just keep going and just keep going and just keep going at it. And just keep going at it. Because here's the thing, right? Like I look at art from this badass quote. There is a quote that if, what's that quote? There's a quote, if necessity is the mother of invention, then repetition is the father of skill. And for you to increase quality, you gotta increase repetitions. And what is increasing repetitions if not quantity? So you get quality from quantity, man. It's not that we can prefer one over the other. And definitely there should be so much quality put out. There's so much quantity put out that quality just becomes inevitable, because you have like if you have like 1,000 podcasts, right? Can you create like a 1 hour documentary which is going to be amazing, stringing conversations together? Yes, that is possible. More possible than if you have an hour of conversation. And there can be more quality in that condensed thing than there is going to be in, you just talking for 1 hour, for example. And some other truths, I'm trying to think about some other truths that are actually illusions. There is this one truth which is held in a crazy fashion, that you are your social identity. That you are, well, social identity, hell with that, that you are your identity. That is just a weird thing. And it's established through repetition as well, because, see, it's practical. If people have social identities, it's practical. You can put them on numbers, you can send them to school, it's going to be easy to manage them. Understandable. But when we are in our private lives, why are we considering identities to be who we are? Why are we not trying to experience ourselves when we are by ourselves, at least? When we are at home, when we are trying to recover from being on the battlefield of the day, to be honest. So we are not our identities. We are like just this experience who does something. And we are an experience of we are like this, like what we experience is a part of us, but what is experiencing that is what we are, the I instinct, right? To understand I instinct, it would just simply be that the biological instinct that says that I exist, I am present, right? It's not even the words, to be honest. It's just when you live it. And that part is called the ego, for example. In Jungian terms, that part is what should be the master of everything. That part should be. When I think and I'm in a thinking zone, well, I'm thinking and I'm a tool to that I instinct that is inside of me. That is truth. And that is more true than believing that we are identities, because if we operate our lives based on this, our life is going to be easier compared to when we believe we are our identities, because we're never going to be loosened enough to do things with our lives, you know. It's just not going to be great. And so this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to, if it comes to me, just going to make out like a little list of things that are considered to be truth, and then things that are considered that are I consider to be illusions that don't really serve life, but are just statements we believe in because we like to bullshit ourselves. Okay, bye bye.